Hi George, can you hear us? Right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time zone you're in, to What Matters Now TV. This is our third episode. The first episode was with, we talked with Navi Raju about his upcoming book, The Conscious Society. The second episode was about deepfakes and the coming infocalypse, and then we talked with Nina Schick. And this time we are talking with someone else. And the topic will be quite different. The topic will be the year 2021. What will be on your agenda, or what must be on your agenda, or what is hot and what is not, and why this year will be the big acceleration. At least that's the prediction that we are going to talk about. Next to me is Michiel Boreel, Group CTO, host. I'm the co-host, or you're the co-host. We are both hosting this event. And I would like to ask you if you have got any questions. There's the YouTube channel, and you can just type in your questions, and it will be fun to see, to get your questions on the table here that we can direct to our guest. It's one of my favorite tech analysts. Now, to be honest, it's my favorite tech analyst. It's George Colony. He's the founder and CEO of Forrester Research. And I think this is the great pleasure that we always have, Michiel and I, because we're so fond of new technology, and it's a great privilege for the research that we and our team are doing to get the people who inspire us in this show and share our inspiration with all of you here. But before we will ask George in our studio, Michiel, maybe it's good to first introduce him to the people here at on YouTube.
Absolutely. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening to you as well from my side. So George and we met each other some 25 years ago when we did the first event here in the Netherlands. That was exactly around the time, if you remember, George, that you were expanding Forrester's operations towards Europe. We have kept in touch ever since, and every few years, George, we invite you to come over and speak at one of our events and share your vision and inspiration. Now, I'm very glad that you are willing and able to join us for this episode of What Matters Now TV. As Men already mentioned, you're the founder, chairman and CEO of Forrester Research. Started, I hear, 35 years ago in your basement when you came from, I think it was Yankee Group or something like that, and have built this organization to something like 1,500 analysts making sense of the technology evolution. Together with these talented people, these 1,500 talented and passionate people within Forrester, you have built it to one of the most successful independent research companies and advisory firms with locations all over the world in 30 countries, I believe now today, George. You are a trusted advisor to many people around the globe, always providing context and clarity around digital disruptions and technological evolution. And I think, George, and we've been to clients together many times, and you really personify the Forrester experience when you meet a client, because you're on one clear mission to tell them something they don't know yet. And so I'm really looking forward to hear something from you that I don't know yet today. And I'm sure that you will provide many of those perspectives. So, George, welcome to you.
Wonderful to see you, Michiel and Menno. You guys are we are blood brothers. We do very similar work. So wonderful to see you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So before I ask my first question to you, George, we're looking at you. What does bold at work mean? I mean, it's right behind you on the Forrester screen. What does it express?
So it is the new branding of Forrester, and we look deeply into who we are and who our clients are, and as a company, you guys know this. I think the audience knows this. Forrester, we have to be courageous. We have to be able to make the calls as we see them. We have to be able to speak truth to power. And Bill Gates once said to me, I hate you and I hate Forrester, but I am an avid reader of Forrester. I'm an avid client of Forrester. And I said, why do you do that? He said, because you're never going to BS me. You're always going to tell me exactly what you think and exactly what you think is happening. So Forrester, we must be bold at work to do our work, but also, as importantly, we must we are helping our clients also be bold at their work, because it is obvious that this is a very challenging world we're living in many, many ways. You can no longer sit back and be a laggard in this world. You must be a leader in this world, or you're going to suffer. I mean, it's extraordinary to think that Facebook is only 16 years old and Twitter is only 14 years old, but they have taken over the media world. Yeah. So if you're one of those legacy companies, you can't just sit there. You must be bold as well. So That's what bold at work is all about.
We'll try to be a little bit more bold for this episode.
I'm getting bolder every year that we meet. So yeah.
So we've structured this in a very easy way, George. It's past, present, and future. to look into the future, you need to go back to the past, etc. So let's start with the past, and the past actually is the year 2020. Now I'm curious, what do you make of this year? Because when you dive into what Time Magazine is saying, and probably you've seen it, they just say, let's just skip the whole year. Let's just forget about it. It was the worst year ever, they say. I mean, for all those people that have not been there when, you know, the Great Depression or Second World War, for many of the post-World War people, this must be the worst year ever, they are saying. So they say delete, and they quote, they say, this is a story that you will never want to revisit. We have been faced with so many abnormal events. Now at the same time, you are talking about the big acceleration, and part of the story, your story about the big acceleration, is that you go back to the 1920s, and you talk about I would say the return of the Roaring Twenties in the 2020s, the pandemic, 1918, 1919, the current pandemic, and you predict a lot of dynamic, a lot of growth, a lot of creativity, fired up by technology, fired up by new experiences. So my question is, so could it be the worst year for society ever and the best year for technology ever?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm not even going to say that it's the worst year for myself. You know, I was born in 1953. The 60s were far worse in the United States than this year. You know, we had a pandemic. There was a pandemic actually in the U.S. in, I think it was 1959, which killed 200,000 people that year. It was another. It was another influenza pandemic, a smaller pandemic. But so look, we can't. We are living through history. That is just the way it is. The question is, what do we do with the history that we lived through and the cards that we are dealt? It has certainly been a very good year for technology. The rich have gotten richer in 2020. It's very obvious now that if you must be digital or you're going to die. Our clients in the May-June timeframe, big banks and big manufacturers and insurance companies came to us and they said, it's obvious now that if we can't digitally connect to our customers, we cannot survive in this pandemic and probably after the pandemic. So all those digital products that were on the back burner were brought to the front burner, and companies began to intensively work on technology. I'm not talking about Amazon, Twitter here. I'm talking about Bank of America and J.P. Morgan, large corporations begin to intensify their digital efforts. So, very good year for digital. Obviously, it's a strange year because we came into the year, you guys and we guys were very worried about digital malware. But what got us this year? It was biological malware, and it was political malware. Forrester and you guys, we talk a lot about agility. It's really, it is really that is the gold, that is the platinum of a company now is how you respond, and not how you are in the moment, but how you're not how your 5-year plan or your 2-year plan, but how you're going to respond in the moment to the situation.
It's the end of strategy, they say, right? It's about adapting to the reality instead of trying to plan what the future will look like for the next 5 years.
Exactly.
Still thinking about 2020, and because it's just behind us, Google they summarized 2020 in a little movie, as you know. They call it, every year they do it, and so this year they did the year in search 2020. And it shows that the most searched word for around the world is the word why. And so maybe we should watch 1 minute of that longer movie, and then you can think about the ultimate why question that is on your mind for 2020. So let's roll the video.
Excellent.
The most human trait is to want to know why. And in a year that tested everyone around the world, why was searched more than ever? So why do we still have strength to continue?
I believe in your power. I believe in our power.
Chants of Black Lives Matter echoed from thousands of protesters in cities around the world.
Why are we not defeated?
We have made too much progress, and we are not going back. We are going forward.
Planes are starting to arrive in Beirut full of international aid.
Firefighters from around the world arriving in California. There are over 100 coronavirus vaccines in development worldwide.
This is one of those times when people look out for one another and have each other's backs.
We kept going for those who showed us the way.
Think about how you would like the world to be for your daughters and granddaughters.
Remember, the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose. Press on with pride and press on with purpose.
Why is it that this year showed its worst and we still found ways to triumph?
An incredible feat for Maya Gabeira.
Naomi Osaka, U.S. Open Championship.
Can't let Corona stop you. Can't let quarantine stop you.
So until we get to every answer, we're still searching.
So we see a pretty optimistic picture of 2020, that's for sure. So what's your ultimate why question, George, when you think of 2020?
What surprised me most about the year was where was the leadership? It just, I'm talking about the scientific leadership and of course the political leadership. It was a very confusing year. In fact, it continues to be a confusing year leadership-wise. I have a little video here I want to show you, kind of summed it up for me.
Okay.
Of all the mixed messages we were getting.
Yeah, I really don't understand why everybody isn't following the same rules right now. They're very clear, so let's take a minute and let's go over them again. First, you must not leave the house for any reason, unless of course you have a reason, and then you may leave the house. All stores are closed except those that are open, and all stores must close unless of course they need to stay open. This virus is deadly, but don't be afraid of it. It can only kill people who are vulnerable and also those who are not vulnerable. We should stay locked down until the virus stops infecting people. And it will only stop infecting people if enough of us get infected that we build immunity. So it is very important that we get infected and also do not get infected. You should not go to the doctor's office or the hospital unless you have to go there. Unless, of course, you are too sick to go there. This virus has no effect on children except for those children in which it affects. The virus remains active on different surfaces for 2 hours or 4 hours.
So that's where the confusion comes from,
So
right? Yeah.
It sort of summed it all up for me. You know, all the crazy messages, and now we see this in the U.S. with the vaccination process is all messed up here. There is, they had 9 months to plan it. The states, and now of course we do have a problem in the United States, and that at the federal level, this has been a disaster, and for all the reasons we might imagine. But where has leadership? Why has leadership failed? Where has leadership been? And I will tell you, in the U.S., some of the states, the leadership was quite good. The governors were quite good. And let's face facts here. Science, it's pretty amazing what they did. In 9 months, they created a vaccination for this disease. So that is pretty cool. But my big why is leadership. I think we're all going to go back to the drawing board on leadership, political leadership and scientific leadership, and we're gonna redraw exactly how it should look in the future. But that's my big why. Where was the leadership? Why was the leadership so hesitant, so confusing?
Yeah. Well, one of the whys that I get from watching the video, George, is why is Europe not in the video? It's all America, and we're all using Google, but the year of Google is 100% the year of almost 100%. I mean, this was a short version, but Europe is never mentioned. Is it? That's my why.
It's the old Europe, right? It's irrelevant. Yeah.
We don't talk about Europe anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think what's happening is this is very human. is that we're all drawing ourselves in. There may be crises in Africa, but frankly, nobody has any mind share for that right now, at least in the U.S.
So we are in a bubble.
Yeah, well, we're all pulling ourselves in toward, that's really what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much in our own bubble with our own research. We're very much into synthetic media and deep fakes and these kind of things. So I'd like to ask your opinion about the topic. Last month, Nina Schick was here in this session, and she mentioned actually a prediction of Forrester Research of the year before, 2020, when she talked about the impact of deep fakes on scams. And it's your research that said costs associated with deepfake scams will exceed 250 million in 2020. Now my question is, did the prediction came true? What happened in 2020 with the deepfake scams? And the other question is, where are the deepfake scams in the predictions of 2021? We may have overlooked, but we couldn't find them in the predictions. So maybe they're on the list. But what's your opinion on the deepfakes and the synthetic media future?
Yeah, so I think that we somewhat overshot that last year. I checked with our analysts, and they said that they estimated it was about maybe in the area of 100 to 150 million of losses ascribed to deepfakes. Yes, this is a very big problem. We're not discounting that. It's a very big problem, but it's coming slower than we thought it was going to come. There are pushbacks here. XAI, explainable AI, and efforts like that, which are looking to frame these advanced systems in explainable, trustable, and in a regulatory sense, so that they're not simply spinning out of control. So I'd say deepfakes, yeah, you guys should continue to focus on this. This is a problem, but it's coming a little bit slower than we had imagined a year ago.
That's good news, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, it could be good news. It could be bad news as well, because it might be this hockey stick effect, right? That it's only gaining speed. In his latest book, former President Obama talked about trust in decay, and of course, looking at fake news, at conspiracy theories, the U.S. election. I'm not even talking about what happened last week. But what are your ideas around trust being in decay? And if it's the case, then how can we rebuild it or reconstruct it, George?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a very large research group at Forrester that looks at trust. This is primarily in the context of consumers and brands. And what they're finding is that trust is not declining, but rather trust is being redirected. It is being redirected away from large corporations. It's being redirected away from large brands. That obviously during, at least in the US, has been redirected away from the federal government. And it's being redirected to family, to friends, to smaller companies, to startups. It is being more distributed and away from the large players. So it's not a decline of trust. It's a redistribution of trust.
Mm-hmm. It's shifting, and then if that is happening, and you're not a small company or a startup, you're an incumbent company, a big company that has relied on their brand for so many years, what's the response? What do they need to do?
What we found is that, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. It was a graphic I wanted to show that in the year 2020, the time of pandemic, this is really about two factors for consumers. One is health, is rather obvious. One is health, and one is finance. Of course, everyone's worried about, are they going to get sick, and will they have enough money? So what the big brands have done, and where we have been working with them, is they've lost their emotional connection to people.
The empathy.
Yeah, exactly. Customer experience it's not just about a good website. It is does the customer feel that you're actually on my side? We have something called the Customer Experience Index, which indexes about 1,000 brands worldwide, as far as their customer experience goes. And if you look at I'll look at online retail in the U.S., Amazon went from number 3 to number 7 to number 12. So 12 is 3 from the bottom in the U.S. And you might be saying, "Wow, I mean, Amazon's fantastic. Look at the good work they do." But the reason they're dropping is because customers don't have an emotional connection to Amazon. They don't feel that Amazon is on their side. They can't connect. They don't talk to Amazon. They don't connect to Amazon. And there's a number of smaller, I would just call it, I guess, niche or specialized online retailers in the U.S. People like Sweetwater, who sells audio equipment, who are using emotional connection to build their businesses and build their brands. So the answer if you're a big brand, if you're Rabobank, what you have to do is you have to find a way to make the emotional connection. Find a way to be on the side of those customers. Don't just simply be this large corporation that has its strategy and it will march on and do its thing. You must be connected. So if you can make that emotional connection, then you can gain trust.
Very good. Yeah. So empathy for an insurance company, for instance, is to be on the side of the person that has suffered the damage, or his car is stolen, there was a break-in. And then what you're suggesting is that the company should think about how would this person feel and what can we do to alleviate that need. Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Well, again, those two axes, right? The axis of health and the axis of finance. That's the axis which will define where you should fall emotionally.
You've sent the slide, George. Do you want us to put it up to be?
Yeah, put that up. Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is interesting. These four quadrants are no.
Oh, they're putting on the wrong slide.
No.
Menno, you should know better. You cannot change the order of the slides while we're having
we need to be bold. Yeah, I just learned a lesson. We need to be bold. It's the quadrant. It's the last one. It's the quadrant. Yes. Sorry. This one.
Yes, so we are looking now at the Forrester Consumer Risk Perception Framework, George. That's the one that you mean.
Yeah, exactly. And this is interesting. If you move, so you all can read this. Obviously, on the x-axis you have health, the perception of their risk, low and high. On the x, that means on the horizontal, and on the vertical you have financial. So this is interesting. If you look at wealth, it starts actually in the upper right-hand quadrant and it circulates. So that would be the group with the least wealth, and the wealthiest would be lower right-hand quadrant, and the wealth sort of goes counterclockwise. But also politically it goes counterclockwise. So the most liberal are going to be in the lower right. The most conservative are going to be in the upper left. So again, this is a 1-hour speech which I could give you about this one graphic, but the companies who are watching this show and who work with you guys and us guys should be thinking this way. And by the way, this won't last. This thinking will probably has another 12 months because the pandemic will be nothing will be over, but we'll be moving beyond this and by September, October.
Okay. So before we go to the present, we have questions from the audience, so to say. And one of the questions is coming from Andrew Keane. You probably know him. And I would say it's a sharp question, as always. Andrew is very sharp, but he's saying, George says we must be bold at work, but what about those without work? Should they also be bold? Is it possible that their boldness might involve violence and class warfare?
Well, it depends. I mean, there is good question. So, if you look at the people who attacked the Capitol in the United States last week, that was not an out of work mob of the proletariat. That's not who that was. Most of those people are working people. It's obvious that we must take care of the most vulnerable in society. That simply has to happen. And that has to happen through social programs, but it also has to happen, of course, you know, as you might imagine, I'm a capitalist, but it also has to happen with free markets and markets where, and nations and markets which are expanding, expanding, building new businesses, building new technologies, and then at the end of the day, employing people. You know, before the pandemic hit in the U.S., we were at historically low unemployment rates. Unemployment rates we haven't seen in this country for 50 years. So we were 3.5%. I'm from a small state in the United States called New Hampshire, which is one of the original 13 states. And in New Hampshire, the biggest problem there pre-pandemic was there weren't enough people. Mm-hmm. I have a brother and a sister who run businesses in New Hampshire. They couldn't find people to work in their businesses. There were not enough people. So we have built a very strong, and I'm talking about Europe, and I'm talking about the US, and I'm talking about parts of Asia as well, very strong capitalist societies which work well in good times. So, you know, obviously the pandemic has changed all of that, and you know, we're living in this moment, but post-pandemic, there are still very strong structures, economic structures and social structures, which will employ those people and engage them. We need those people.
We will come back to this point just a little bit later on. Maybe Menno, we should move on to the next part.
Yeah,
the present.
The present. So I've got a list of 8, and we'll do a game. If you're into a game, it's called Hot or Not.
There are actually
sure.
9.
Actually 9.
Yeah.
Okay. Hot or not. The game is very simple. We mention something, some technology, and you just answer with hot or not.
And then later on, you can give a comment on why you think they're hot or not, right?
Yeah.
So no comment while you're at. Well, just give me a hot or not. That's it.
Just shoot from the hip.
And Michiel is counting your mistakes. So let's see.
Yeah.
First one is Zoom. Hot or not?
Very hot. And of course, the cool thing would be. Whoa. Hot.
Okay. Very hot. Okay.
Facebook.
Cold.
Not.
Not.
Oh, not. Sorry. Okay.
Twitter.
Not.
Parler.
Not.
Elon Musk.
Hot.
Jack Ma.
Where the hell is he?
Good answer. Bitcoin.
Hot.
Blockchain.
Hot.
TikTok.
Hot.
So what are the mistakes, Michiel? Well, first I want to come back to what you said about Zoom and Facebook. So it looked like you wanted to say something more than only hot or not, George.
Well, let's look at Zoom for a second. Obviously, hot. I mean, off the charts hot, because the world is operating on Zoom these days. Now the question is, when this is over, what happens? Is Zoom diminished? I don't think so. What has happened, I said this in the Big Acceleration, that blog post, is that after the pandemic is over, we are going to have not less, but more technology in our lives. We are going to go to a forever hybrid world. In education, as an example, we're going to go to a forever hybrid world, where if a kid can't be in a class, the kid will be at home on Zoom, and the kid will still be in the class. I'm on the board of a private school, 9 through 12 private school in Connecticut. And we believe that we have about 850 students there. We believe that perhaps we could have 5,000 students there, with 800 in person and the other 4,000 virtual. So Zoom is now part of all of our lives. Think of it. Think of the people over 65. Think of the people under the age of 11 who'd never used Zoom. Now they're using Zoom every single day.
Yeah,
this is now part of our lives. So Zoom is forever here. Yeah. By the way, I think that some big player is going to come in and either acquire them or blow them away. But this I mean, look what we're doing right now. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, Zoom, hot forever.
The other surprise that I had was what you said about blockchain, because I would have expected that you would have said not, but you said it's hot. So you know that we have spent a lot of writing a few years ago on blockchain and the possibilities. But then over the last year or so, I'm starting to talk about the blockchain mystery, right? If it's so good, then why don't we see it being used much more all around us? Why don't we, when we ask about successful applications, still we have the example of Maersk and all these known suspects that we have seen for the last couple of years already. So why isn't the momentum visible yet?
Yeah, I mean, the momentum is not visible because this is in essence, it is a very, very revolutionary technology. The world that exists today does not love or embrace revolutionary technology because it could mean that they would be pushed out during that revolution. Again, you guys are smarter than I am about this, but when I look at blockchain, what I see is a database owned by no one. It is truly the people's database. If someone could build a social network on blockchain which cannot be controlled by a central force, be it Facebook or Twitter, WhatsApp, then that is highly revolutionary. That would destroy. I actually believe that in the essence of blockchain, the story of blockchain is a story of the destruction of many current players like Facebook, like Twitter, potentially like Google. Two things are holding it back. One is the world, the Googles of the world, they just want the world to keep rotating. They don't want anything to change. Everything's great. They don't want that to happen. So the forces, the powerful forces don't want it to happen, one. And two, look, let's face facts. It is a complex technology. This is not easy to implement. But I'm still a big believer that this has massive future potential. Now there are problems here. It's very expensive. It takes a lot of resources to run a lot of blockchains, obviously. But I think there's still a lot of potential here.
Okay, Menno, any things that were a surprise to you, Menno?
Oh, this answer maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it could also. I was thinking it could also be blockchain. Could also be the new parlor. I mean, it can be good or bad. I mean, that's technology. So. The blockchain isn't there. We're still waiting, but it can also be applied in a more, I would say, confusing way. I mean, not controlled way, but we can't predict the future.
Okay. So George, let's shift gears again. So, of course, due to this still raging Corona or COVID-19 crisis, most of the world is still in lockdown. Tonight in the Netherlands, for instance, there will be a press conference that they will prolong the lockdown once again for a couple of weeks. Stores are closed, the streets are empty. People are constantly reminded of the necessity for social distancing. And so basically it all comes down to remote everything, right? Worldwide, it's the biggest experiment ever for working remotely. That's what we have learned over the last year. And so the big companies, the big tech players like Microsoft, Google, etc., they are talking about letting their people work from home permanently. So even after the crisis fades, that they will still have people working from home. So what does this mean for the future of work? Will we ever go back to the office, or what will happen?
Yeah. So we are estimating that the work at home contingent will move from around 9% of the U.S. to somewhere near 20% over the next 2 years. So this is not going to be a clearing out of offices, guys. That's not going to happen. The office will still be a critical part of where we meet clients or where we do our work. Obviously, if you're manufacturing, that's where you manufacture and build. But it's pretty obvious that we're going to a new hybrid world where the office becomes more of a place for events, more of a place for teams to gather and be together for a specific amount of time. But much of the work can actually be done remotely. This again, we're not going back to the old world. We're going back to a new world. We call it flex work. Again, very based on this technology and improved versions of this technology, enabling us to do that. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel or how the people on the show feel here, but I think it's amazing. I can go to a board meeting here in the US. I can visit with clients in Europe, as I'm doing with you right now. I can be with employees in Asia tonight and then come back for another board meeting tomorrow morning. It's like teleportation. Again, it's not perfect. We did our company kickoff yesterday we have about 2,000 employees worldwide. And the kickoff, it went pretty well. We use a platform called Intrado, which we do all of our virtual events on now. It was very good. It was a very good event. But I will tell you, our company kickoff is a very emotional moment for the company. This is where we all thank each other for the year and the work we've done. We touch each other, we connect to each other. And so something was missing at that meeting. And that was, again, we'll go back to this important word, emotion, this emotional, human beings, this is how we are. We want to be connected, and not just over video, but also in person. So the office will have a place for that emotional connection, for the nuances of human life and human work.
Okay.
However, this, again, we're not going back. There's going to be a significant amount of us who will be working from home significantly more over the next several years.
And if we are in this hybrid future, so beyond COVID, what do you think about corporate culture? Will it, per definition, change corporate culture when we work in a hybrid way? Or another question could be, how do you keep your culture alive, which is far more difficult if it's only on Zoom? Or so what are the things that you need to do, the new things that you need to do? How do you get your new work, people that join Forrester or other companies, how do you get acquainted with the culture?
Yeah,
I think these are new questions.
Yeah, good, and great question, Menno. What we are advising, what our research is showing, is that companies in this world, you have to have more points of connection, not fewer. We are so if you had a company meeting every quarter, we have advised that you'd have a company meeting every month. If the CEO communicated with the worldwide workforce every 6 months, now you do that every 2 months. So the way that you'll build culture is you're just simply going to have more connection points. Now, a lot of them will be virtual and digital like this, but there's going to have to be more of that type of communication, especially from the top leaders.
Yeah.
Okay. So another question, shift gears again. So, of course, we are interested in this post-COVID world and what organizations will actually have learned from this crisis. Now, in the Forrester analysts, they talk about this future fit technology strategy. And I think so we already saw it passing by, this interesting triangle that your analysts use to explain this future fit strategy. So can you talk a little bit about it, but also then say a little bit about how does this post-COVID world, how is this a recipe for success also in a post-COVID world? That should be the question, George.
Yeah. My analysts, if they're listening in, I forgive you for what I'm about to say.
Now it's getting interesting.
Right, exactly. Look, I've spent my entire career working with CIOs, many CIOs actually in the Netherlands and in Benelux, on how we make technology move faster. And it's obvious, well, not obvious, but for Forrester at least, customers, we're now in what we call the age of the customer. The customer is taking control and wants what they want when they want it at the temperature that they want it. And so the customer is moving very fast, but the technology is moving very slowly. So what Forrester is saying, okay, if you're a CIO and if you're running technology at a large company, it's obvious you're going to have to make the technology adapt. You're going to have to fit it to the future of where your customer is headed. And so that's what future fit is all about. It's talking about being adaptive and exactly how you do that. Now, my skepticism comes in here. And again, if the Forrester analysts are listening, forgive me. I am skeptical of the ability of CIOs to move at that speed. I am in the business that I'm in. I do the work that I do because I hate waste. I've spent my life seeing large companies waste their time with technology, either write a big check and not implement it right in the right way, or not writing the check. And so I'm in the business because I hate waste. I'm always trying to help companies avoid waste. But I will tell you, I don't have a lot of confidence in those CIOs to build future fit, to move at the right speed. Obviously, we have to tell them to do it, but it always goes like this. It's always about 10% that nail it, another 10% that do a pretty good job, and then you've got about another 10% that kind of do okay, but 70%, they never get it. They just don't get it. Now, I will tell you that the stakes are now rising so high that they've either got to get this to be able to match up with what their customers want, or they're going to get fired, and they should get fired.
So this is not digital disruption anymore. This is digital discontinuity. If you don't do it, you're gone.
Yeah, and I like to say it's digital or die now. You really have to be digital or die. You're gonna have to push that hard because the risks are simply too high. And by the way, this is driven by those customers. There's very aggressive and very demanding customers. It's all coming from the age of the customer.
And do you think that companies have learned from this COVID crisis that it's that serious and that they really now have to solve their legacy issues and move forward at a much higher pace? Have they learned this lesson, or where are we?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it goes back to what Menno was saying. But is this the worst year ever? But if you look at technology, and if you look at this is obvious and kind of a cliche, but it's a wake-up call. It's a big wake-up call here. Citizens Bank, it's a small regional bank in New England, big client of ours. The head of digital there, he called me in like June, and he said, wow. He said, my CEO called me and said, I'm going to write you a check, any money you want, I'm going to write you the check, and you start to implement. Let's go. So this is a time which is going to wake up those CEOs and wake up the leadership and get them moving. So I think we may look back at this as being a very good watershed time where digital was finally accepted and understood, and we went forward with it. So that's it. When this is all over, I'm going to write the good things that happened during 2020 and 2021. That will be one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Wake up calls.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the CIO leadership, if they want to drag their feet, they want to focus on control, they want to focus on security, they want to focus on lowering costs, they should go.
Yeah.
It's time for them to go.
Maybe it will be their worst year ever if they're getting fired, I was thinking.
Yes.
Make it very concrete. The question I have for you on the status quo of big tech and social media. I mean, it's incredible things are going on in that area. It all can be summarized by watching The Social Dilemma, the Netflix series. Maybe before I ask you the question, we can watch a 30-second trailer of the series.
If technology creates mass chaos, loneliness, more polarization, more election hacking, more inability to focus on the real issues, we're toast.
This is checkmate on humanity.
Checkmate on humanity, Menno. That's strong words. Checkmate on humanity.
Yeah, so they're talking about dehumanization, so the whole thing, the whole social media. But it's funny to see that now people are talking about dehumanization when they are kicked off out of Parler or Twitter because they can't force themselves anymore. So that's another argument, but it's confusing, so to say. So my question is, now that we have this the Biden administration in place. What do you think will be the impact of that on big tech? So what will happen with the big tech companies now? And why could that be important for organizations? Why is it important to know what will happen with big tech companies?
Yeah. So there was a great article in the Atlantic Monthly a couple months ago talking about how Facebook is a doomsday machine for society. That it is I guess, somewhat aligned with the series on Netflix. During the Biden administration, what I believe is going to happen, and what should have happened over the last 4 to 6 years, is that there will be antitrust will be brought to the fore. So antitrust in the U.S., I'm not sure how it works in Europe, but antitrust in the U.S. has been about low price, not about structure of market. But I think Biden and that administration is going to bring structure of market to the fore in antitrust. There's no way that Facebook should ever have been allowed to buy WhatsApp or Instagram, and that will not be allowed in the future. So what you're going to have is a fracturing via antitrust of these large players, and that I believe that would be a good thing to happen. More competition. Of course, I'm a believer in competition. More competition here would be very good to keep them in the thinking about the cause of society and the cause of improving the civil moment. You know, the attack on the Capitol last week is a very, very, very big deal. I don't know if you in Europe know that, but it's a very big deal here.
Yeah.
The social networks under Rule 230, under Section 230 of the Decency Act of 1996. This is the section of the U.S. which enables them to moderate the talk on their networks, but not be liable for any talk which is damaging. So it excuses them essentially from liability.
Yeah.
What happened last week in the attack of the Capitol was, however, under Act 230, they had to be politically in the middle, the social networks. But what happened last week with the attack on the Capitol is now, this is not about being politically in the center. That was about sedition and bringing down the government. Therefore, Twitter and Facebook and Amazon can begin to really take action to moderate in a very big way this speech, the speech of the president, the speech of Parlay, and so that's a very, very big moment, because remember, they also have First Amendment rights, those companies.
So do you think that this Article 230, will it be changed or will it be abolished so that the social networks are actually liable for what they publish on the network, so that they're treated more as a newspaper than as a telco? Do you think that's going to happen, George?
No, I don't think so, because if 230 goes, you won't have a business. They won't exist. They won't exist. There will not be a business there. And of course, there's a lot of goodness here. It's not, you know, we look at the downside of the social networks, but there is goodness here as well.
Yeah.
What will happen, however, is they're going to have to use brute force AI and massive additional resources to moderate those social networks, or 230 will be they will take 230 down. So there's going to have to be massive moderation here and expenditures at much higher levels by those networks if they're going to be allowed to operate under 230.
Yeah. Now everybody's of course talking about Twitter and Facebook. I want to talk about TikTok. You know, this platform, of course, it's often used by the Gen Z. I saw an average that they're spending 45 minutes a day on this platform, publishing videos, looking at videos. But maybe before I ask your comments on it, maybe we should show to the audience what their children are actually doing 45 minutes a day. So we have made a little clip of some of the interesting things that happen on TikTok. So let's first watch that.
Excellent.
Wait, what are you? I don't know what you're trying to. What are you trying to do here? Oh my god. What?
So looking at this platform, so of course we showed just a little collection of all the madness that is going on there. And then so sometimes I think, well, this is just a silly platform, but I remember me saying this about Twitter as well. When was it, 10, 15 years ago? Or we should look at it as Second Life. I remember this platform where all companies suddenly thought that they needed to buy an island, and they spent lots and lots of money and that didn't go anywhere. So So what are you thinking about TikTok and this emotional connection and things like that you just talked about earlier? Is it important for organizations to look at these new kinds of platforms and this video platform where they follow a video first strategy, if we could talk about that? So what's your opinion there?
So I'll say something really stupid, which I'm actually quite good at saying stupid things. That if the audience is there, you go there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the deal. But you know, there's more about TikTok than meets the eye. You know, if my 13-year-old niece doesn't know this, but it's run by the Chinese. This is they are using massive AI, machine learning, to harvest this data. I'm not saying that's better or worse than what Facebook is doing, or Twitter is doing, or Google is doing, but it is. This is an issue that the current president did highlight. So that being said, I mean, who will own TikTok under the Biden administration? I think Oracle was talked about as being the acquirer of TikTok.
Microsoft as well, I think.
Yeah.
Microsoft. I mean, those are complete mismatches. That is ridiculous. But there's going to be a reckoning here with any network definitely social network owned by the Chinese. I mean, we see what's happening with WeChat now. WeChat is being politically moderated in the U.S. U.S. citizens' speech is being moderated by the Chinese in the U.S. in WeChat. So what I would say is that you got to be a little bit more careful here than if this was a U.S.-owned or European-owned social network, because it is owned by the Chinese.
Okay.
Very good. A few minutes to spend on the future. We already talked about the future, of course, previously. Another round of hot or nots, and I will mention them, and you just say hot or not. To start with 5G.
Hot.
Virtual humans.
I don't know what that is.
Podcast.
Not.
The cloud.
Hot.
Silicon Valley.
Hot.
Power apps.
Don't know what that is.
Low code, no code, these kind of things.
Hot.
Okay. Green IT.
Hot.
Quantum computing.
Who the frick knows?
That's a nice.
By the way, there are some people like Ellen May are sharing their own list of what's hot or not in the chat, and I would like to encourage everyone in the chat to do the same.
So I've one thing which was surprising to me. When we ask you about Silicon Valley, whether it's hot or not, you had to think for a long time. Where probably 10 years ago you would have said hot. What has changed?
Well, you have political problems in San Francisco. It's in California. California is going crazy liberal out there, and you know, new regulations for business and also for people with wealth. So that's why you see Elon Musk moving to Austin, moving to Texas, and you know, there's always there's this talk about everyone's leaving Silicon Valley. I hate to tell everybody, Silicon Valley is an incredible, unbelievably powerful ecosystem of venture capital, of manufacturing, of talent, of thinking, of coding. I mean, it is an extraordinary ecosystem. We here in Boston, I'm in the Boston area, we're very envious of it, but it's not just going to go away. You know, if you look at the meltdown of the dot-com meltdown, 2000, 2001, this is true actually. The population of San Francisco dropped by 17% between the year 2000 and the year 2003. 17% of the people left Silicon Valley. Everyone said it's over, it's done. Bullshit. It just didn't happen that way. Then came Facebook, then came Google, and then it's back on its feet. It's an extraordinary place with massive power, so it's not going away.
Okay.
I think about the last question. For one of your the prediction that you make about the big acceleration, the one thing that intrigued me very much was when you talk about the value reset. There will be a value reset, so paradigm shift, whatever, different kind of thinking. At the same time, you talk about technology. More tech, everything will be, digital. How will these two things play out? Will it be a happy marriage, like more technology and a value reset? And what is the value reset? Maybe you should explain. Or will it be a clash?
Well, when I talk about values reset, so in the big acceleration, it's the changes after the pandemic and where we are going. And there's been a return to family. There's been a return to friends. There's been obviously we're doing much of this virtually, but we're doing it. I don't know about all of you on this who have tuned into this show, but I have connected to so many friends that I'd lost over the last 20, 30 years. We reconnected during the time of pandemic, and groups of friends, and we've had so much fun. So I think it's a values reset in terms of more family, more friends, more groups, be they virtual or non-virtual. There will also be a values reset around work. People will want more work-life balance after this, and there will also be a reset around things versus experiences. There is a thirst out there. Like all of us on this call probably or on this show. There's a thirst for experience. And so there's going to be people will want fewer things in the future and more experiences, more travel. So I don't see this in conflict, Menno, with technology. I don't see you could either have great values or a lot of technology. I see technology as helping, connecting to building the values, not destroying the values. Now, obviously, there's a downside here. We see that in the social networks, degrading society, parts of society. But values and technology can go together. They can help each other.
So George, we're coming towards the end of the time that we have together, but still I want to ask you a question, and you talked about it a little bit at the beginning about this capitalism and capitalism needing a reset, right? So just before we went into this crisis, we saw these things coming out about the end of the Friedman doctrine, where it's not only focused on profits and shareholders' value, but other stakeholders should have a equal position. The Times came with this agenda, right? Capitalism is time. Capital is me. Time for a reset. The whole idea of purpose. So, what do you believe? Is it this idea of profit and purpose? Is it real, or is it just another way of continuing the old business, but then we do a little bit of purpose washing for it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Much of this in the U.S. There's actually a great book called I forgot the name of the book now, but it's called the Economist's Hour. It's called The Economist's Hour. It's a book I read this summer. Excellent book. I recommend it to all of you. It's about the Chicago School under Milton Friedman of economists and what they did in the United States between the 1950s and the 1990s. They essentially brought a free market, almost a libertarian view of political economics and business economics to the U.S. That's really what Reaganism was based around. And there was a professor at Harvard Business School who brought who had the concept of shareholder value, that it's all about shareholder value. That's all the only reason you run a company is to build shareholder value. Nothing else matters. He died recently, and he actually on his deathbed he recounted all. He disowned all those thoughts because the fact is that is short-term thinking. It is not thinking for our grandchildren. It's definitely not thinking for our great-grandchildren. We have to think as capitalists. We have to think about, of course, our businesses and building shareholder value, but it's also value for society. It's also value for employees. It's also value for our customers. This all sounds like motherhood and apple pie, but the deal is we're not going to have a society if we don't think about the community around us and our business and the effect that business has on them. We're very proud in Boston today because Bill Belichick, who's the coach of the New England Patriots, our football team here, Donald Trump wanted to give him the Medal of Freedom, and today he said he was not going to accept the Medal of Freedom from Donald Trump.
Wow!
So he's thinking in a bigger way about the future and about his actions. So it's and by the way, Forrester, we're spending a lot of time now on values-based business. A lot of our researchers are looking at this, and So there is, look, we're not all going to become Toms of Maine or Ben and Jerry's. That's not going to happen. But there will be a moderation of this fixation on shareholder value, and that's going to be good for business, good for our customers, and also good for society. And that's what, at the end of the day, what we have to build.
I think that's a very, very nice and important message at the end of our show. George, thank you so much. And since this is the beginning of the year, the end of the show, is there anything you want to wish the people that are listening or watching?
I hope that all of your families are safe. I hope all of your families are healthy. I'm not particularly religious, but I am praying and hoping that the people who are administering and organizing the vaccinations will do a really good job and will go really fast. In the U.S., we have to vaccinate. We have to have 650 million vaccinations over the next 6 months. I expect Joe Biden has said that in his first 100 days he's going to get 100 million vaccinations into them. That's not enough, but he's going to move very, very fast. So I hope you're all safe. I hope you're all healthy. And when this is all over, we're going to go into the roaring 2020s. This is going to be a crazy, crazy decade. Demand is going to be released. All that money is going to be released. People are going to be looking for experiences. It's going to be, I think, an extraordinary decade of technology, an extraordinary decade of growth for all of us.
Thank you. Any wishes from you, Michiel?
Well, what can I say after all these wishes already? I subscribe to all of them, George. I subscribe to all of them, especially staying healthy, of course. But so after listening to George as well and the course that this conversation went, and you never know before where we will go. I think it will be in this unpredictable, volatile world, and 2021 won't be very different than 2020. There will be many surprises. Already the first week was kind of a surprise. I think it's all about facts and opinions, and the wisdom. I wish the people the wisdom to make the difference between the two. I think that will help us already a lot in the coming year.
I just want to say, no words to add, but good health and happy vaccination to everyone.
All right. Thank you for having me, guys.
Sure.
Appreciate it very much.
And see you for the next episode of What Matters Now TV.
Thank you very much.
Until next time.